Hey there, everyone. This is NBAV, NBAVE, your NBA Avenue for casual sports conversation and your NBA venue for a great time every time. And what we're going to do today is go through the free agents who are going to be available after the 2023-2024 NBA season. You may ask, why would you do that right now? We're just over halfway into the 2023-2024 NBA season. And you want to go through the free agents for after the season? But it actually makes a lot of sense to do that right now because as we start approaching the NBA trade deadline, when you want to understand deals and why they're happening, you need to know who's going to become available at the end of the year. And I'll explain to you why with an example. If you look at the trade the Indiana Pacers made with the Toronto Raptors, the Indiana Pacers, we're just going to focus on the main pieces. The Indiana Pacers sent away Bruce Brown and they got back Paskal Siakam. Yes, there were other parts in the trade. There were cash considerations with New Orleans, some other stuff going on. But basically, the Pacers had signed Bruce Brown to a 2-year deal. So they had Bruce Brown for this year and for next year. And the salary was $22,000 this year, $23,000 next year with a team option. So 2 years and between $22 and $23 million per year for Bruce Brown. They traded him out to the Toronto Raptors, and in exchange, they got from Toronto Paskal Siakam. Now, Paskal Siakam is owed a lot more money, but it's only for the rest of this season, and then he's an unrestricted free agent next year. So for this year, he's on the books for $37 million and change in the last year of a ginormous contract for Paskal Siakam. Which begs the question, why would Indiana do this right now? So if you look at Indiana, they're doing pretty well. They're in the playoff mix in the Eastern Conference. They have one of the budding superstars in the league. They have Tyrese Halliburton. But trading away Bruce Brown, a guy who they just signed for 2 years, so they would have had this year and next year, in order to get Paskal Siakam, a much better player, all-around better defender, a much better player than Bruce Brown. This is telling you the Indiana Pacers most likely want to compete this year. Because why else would they sign a player who is not going to be on their team next year? Granted, they could re-sign him. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that it's not. But you're going to make a trade to bring over a guy who you could just sign in the offseason. Why didn't you just sign him in the offseason? And it's not like that because you brought him here now to the team right now that you have some sort of advantage in signing him, at least financially. There's no advantage to bringing a player to you. Every other team in the league can still pay him the same amount of money next season. And they can offer him the same contract that you, the Indiana Pacers, can offer him. This isn't a case where there are bird rights. This isn't a case where you've had a player on your team for several seasons and now you can offer a bigger max contract than the next guy. And that's why you would want to retain a guy like that so that you can now give him the best and biggest max contract offer. That doesn't come into play. What does Indiana see here? The only thing it tells me is that they want to see how far can we take it this season. We have one of the premier talents in the NBA with Tyrese Halliburton. Let's bring Paskal Siakam in and see if we can actually make a run at this thing. But can they be so naive? I understand you won the NBA in-season tournament, but for whatever that's worth, you played the Lakers. And the Lakers the Lakers have gone sideways and downhill since then. You can't actually assume that because you won the NBA in-season tournament that you now have a chance to win the NBA championship. That's ludicrous. Meanwhile, they make a play for a player who's going to be gone next year. Were they just trying to open up cap space? Can that be? If they were trying to open up cap space, then that means that they were out on the Bruce Brown sweepstakes. They had Bruce Brown on the team for this year and also for next season at a $22 to $23 million mark. Is it possible that they traded for Paskal Siakam just to get rid of Bruce Brown for next season so that they could position themselves to sign someone else, a better free agent? They just signed Paskal Siakam. I'm sorry, they just signed Bruce Brown. Now they traded him. They just signed him to a 2-year contract. And he's gone. Who could possibly be a free agent that they realized, wait a second, we shouldn't have really signed Bruce Brown because we're going to need that $22 million to go get one of these great free agents coming up after the 2023-2024 NBA season. And that takes us back to my original point of why it makes sense to analyze who's going to be a free agent after this year right now, even though we're only about halfway through with the season. Because you are coming to you're seeing these decisions by NBA teams like the Pacers where they're either doing one of two things. They're either getting Paskal Siakam because they think they can seriously make a run at the title, which is a little tough to believe, or you have the other option that they wanted to get rid of Bruce Brown and not have his contract count against them for next season. But if they wanted to have his contract not count against them for next season, then that means they must want to use that money towards some other deals. So let's quickly run through who are the top free agents that are going to be free at the end of this year, at the end of the 2023-2024 NBA season. Now, I'm not going to go through all the players who have team options, who are getting overpaid, where the team, all of the teams who have players who are on player options, where the players are getting overpaid, and they're obviously going to take and pick up the player option to stay with the team that's paying them a lot of money. We're going to go through the players who are real unrestricted free agents because most of those with the player options, they're just going to stay. So let's go through the players who are actually going to be free for a fact that we know after this season. The number one free agent after the 2023-2024 NBA season is going to be Tyrese Maxey. And he's going to command an absolute king's ransom in free agency. He's most likely going to be looking for a max contract. And Philly's probably going to give it to him. Not to mention, if we're still looking at things from a Pacers perspective, Tyrese Maxey's not a fit on the Indiana Pacers. They already have a point guard. The second best free agent is Paskal Siakam. Are they freeing up cap space to make a bigger play on Paskal Siakam? You have James Harden, another free agent next season. There's no way the Pacers are interested in James Harden, a point guard who's past his prime. You have a very interesting free agent, Malik Monk. If he were to leave Sacramento, boy, would a lot of teams have their eye on him. Would he be a great fit on Indiana? Oh, yes, he would be. He would be another ex-King to absolutely thrive in Indiana, along with Tyrese. You also have free agents like DeMar DeRozan, Tobias Harris. You have Isaiah Hartenstein, Gordon Hayward for whatever he's worth, Tyus Jones, Kyle Anderson, the newly traded Emmanuel Quickley, DeAnthony Melton, and you have Klay Thompson. Those are some of the top players. What I'm coming to here is this is not exactly the all-star lineup of free agents and free agency. There aren't a whole bunch of max guys out there after the 2023-2024 season. So who exactly are the Pacers freeing up space for? Were they just out on Bruce Brown at $22 million a year? Or do they think they're going to make a run? And I think they may just be naive enough to think that they're going to make a run at the NBA championship or They think that bringing Paskal Siakam to Indiana now is somehow going to help their chances of re-signing him in the offseason. When most likely, Pascal's going to go where the money is. Whoever offers him the biggest contract, that's where he's going. Let's take a look around the league at some of the other trade deadline. What should a team do? What does a team's need at the trade deadline right now? And we have a beautiful article here from Bleacher Report. Let's go through and let's see what the great sage Bleacher Report has to say. Atlanta Hawks. Okay, what is the Atlanta Hawks? What are their needs for the trade deadline? Atlanta Hawks. Reshape roster around Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. All right. Bleacher Report coming in with some real sharp information. Everyone knows this, of course. Of course, you're trying to build around Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. But what should they do? That's a very general. Come on, Bleacher Report, give me something to work with here. Reshape the roster around Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. Could you have been any more general? Could you have given us any less information? Boston Celtics. Find a big wing. Brooklyn Nets. Be open to buying and selling. What does that even mean? Be open to buying and selling. Why would they buy? Who are they buying? Their team is in the lower half of the Eastern Conference, and they don't have a marquee player. Who are they trying to buy right now? I could understand selling. What is Bleacher Report talking about? Charlotte Hornets. Trade Terry Rozier while stock is high. There you go. Okay, now at least you're giving me something here on this fourth team, the Charlotte Hornets. You're saying trade Terry Rozier, and 100% you should. The Charlotte Hornets are in the toilet. They have nothing to do for this NBA season. They're not going anywhere. Trade whoever you can trade off this team. Any high-priced player who's counting against your salary right now. Unload him. 100%. Chicago Bulls. Don't force a Zach LaVine trade. Why not? Why would you not force a Zach LaVine trade? What are you going to do with Zach LaVine? He's hurting your team because you have Kobe White playing the point guard. And you have Zach LaVine upsetting the balance. Everyone wants Kobe White. Everyone wants Zach LaVine out. Why would you not force a Zach LaVine trade? You should. Cleveland, add another playmaker. How can Cleveland add another playmaker? They have Donovan Mitchell. They have Darius Garland. He's hurt right now. What are you going to do? You're going to add a third playmaker into that mix right now? Really, Bleacher Report. You're going to add a third playmaker into a team that already has two, and there's only one basketball to go around. Dallas Mavericks. Explore front court upgrades. They have Blake Lively in the front court. They have Dwight Powell. Sure, it would be nice to get a front court upgrade. I can jibe with that one. Denver Nuggets, find a backup center. That one's true. The Denver Nuggets really do need a backup center. Right now, the biggest flaw with the Denver Nuggets that hasn't made them the same team that they were last season is last season they weren't reliant on backup point guard Reggie Jackson. Last season they weren't reliant on backup center DeAndre Jordan. This season they're actually playing those guys. So to say that they would need a backup center and also a backup point guard, that's really accurate. Maybe they could be a great Tyus Jones destination. Perhaps. Perhaps they would have been a good Emmanuel Quickly destination. Let's see what else we have from Bleacher Report. You have the Detroit Pistons balance out the roster. What does that even mean? How could they balance the roster? There is no roster in Detroit. What can they balance? Are you saying trade Jaden Ivey? What kind of return are you going to get on Jaden Ivey right now? He's played like 2 games for you this season. Yeah, he's hit the court in more games than that, but he's actually got the run. Monty Williams has given him actual playing time in just a handful of NBA games. What kind of value are you going to get on Jaden Ivey? A first-round pick? Maybe, maybe. How are you balancing the roster like that? You want to trade Cade Cunningham? You'll get something for him. Is that the move? I guess that would be balancing out the roster if you're saying to trade their best player. But if you're saying they should trade Cade Cunningham, that's a much bigger headline than balance out the roster. Why not just say trade Cade Cunningham and reset the roster? Golden State Warriors, Bleacher Report says, keep Jonathan Kuminga. Why are they keeping Jonathan Kuminga? What are they going to do with him? He's been unhappy there since the day he got there. He doesn't fit with their team. He adds athleticism. He adds some shooting. Maybe he's just a decent stats, bad team kind of player. What has he ever done in his career that makes you think Golden State should keep him? If I was Golden State, he would be a player I would ship him out of there, attach him with somebody who you have on the roster and upgrade slightly. Kuminga's not adding much to your team and we have four years of evidence to this. Houston Rockets prioritize internal growth over splashy trade. Okay, basically you're saying ride it out. I get that for the Rockets. The Rockets should ride it out. They shouldn't make any hasty moves. You try to upgrade where you can here and there. Not exactly a wealth of wisdom from Bleacher Report. Indiana Pacers. Bleacher Report says add defensive help. Yeah, I mean, defensive help would be nice, I suppose. They already traded for Paskal Siakam, so they already got the defensive help, and they're one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA, so it's not exactly rocket science. Los Angeles Clippers find one more rotation piece. I mean, what really are you supposed to do with that? And Bleacher Report keeps going. Los Angeles Lakers avoid any blockbuster moves. What does that even mean? If you're the Los Angeles Lakers, how can you avoid a blockbuster move? You have LeBron for who knows how much longer, and who knows how much longer he'll be able to help you win a title. How can you avoid making a blockbuster? You need to make a blockbuster move. You need to make moves. And if you're out on the LeBron sweepstakes, then trade LeBron. Make the biggest blockbuster move. I would have had more respect for Bleacher Report if they would have said, trade LeBron. That would have been at least a take. At least that's some information I can do something with. What does Bleacher Report suggest? Just ride out the season and be, 15 games under 500 by the end of it, or 5 games under 500, and where are you going to go? To the off season? Go on vacation? Is that what Bleacher Report wants from the Lakers? Memphis Grizzlies, start planning for next year. I mean, Bleacher Report, come on. Start planning for next year. Miami Heat, chase a point guard upgrade. They're trying to say that Kyle Lowry is old. And if Kyle Lowry isn't doing it for them, they're going to need more of a backup point guard than Lowry's giving them right now. Milwaukee Bucks, trade for a point of attack defender. Yeah, obviously, Milwaukee needs point guard help, of course. I can actually respect this one. They have a picture of Alex Caruso. They're saying get some defensive help on the. But of course, I mean, it's one of the worst defenses in the NBA. Of course, they need another player who can play some on-ball defense because they have Damian Lillard who doesn't do that, and he's a point guard. So you're saying get another guard who can defend the other team's number one. Yeah, that would be a beautiful, beautiful thing if Milwaukee could do that. Minnesota Timberwolves add one more ball handler. New Orleans Pelicans dump Kyra Lewis Jr. for luxury tax relief. That's your game plan? Dump a meaningless player for luxury tax relief? What about try to make a trade to make your team better? I mean, you have a bunch of, if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, you have a bunch of middling players where you're not sure if any of them are the real deal. You have a couple of really good players, but nobody who's a great player. You have Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, CJ McCollum. And you're barely a playoff team. And the only move that you want to make is to dump a guy who's barely on the team to avoid the luxury tax? Perhaps a better idea would be to try and figure out your roster and try to figure out who's going to stay, who's going to go, and where your future lies. Why don't you trade CJ McCollum? What's he going to do except for rot away on this team? Why don't you give some younger guys more of a run? But Bleacher Report is saying, dump Kyra Lewis, avoid the luxury tax. I'm sure that will make New Orleans fans very happy. The Knicks find an Emmanuel Quickley replacement. Well, the Knicks already think they have a replacement. They think they have Miles McBride. What they really need, what the Knicks really need, is perhaps another big man to go along with Hartenstein. When they lost Mitchell Robinson, that's what they need. They need another big man. Or perhaps an upgrade on the wing, an upgrade to Quentin Grimes. That's what the Knicks need. Oklahoma City Thunder, Bleacher Report says, move on to lunch. They provide a quote from Sam Presti. Sam Presti says as follows, I'm not trying to dismiss everyone's excitement, but we're not a 500 team. We have to finish our breakfast before we start acting like we're on the cusp of something. Essentially, what Presti is saying is, don't rush the process. We're going to take it slow. We are going to really build this thing out. We're going to make sure that the roster is super solid before we really go for it and try to get a star. And Bleacher Report is saying, now's the time. You're finished with breakfast. Move on to lunch. Move on to the next phase where it's time to bring in a big star. But does that really make sense? They're already in the right place. They're already one of the best teams in the NBA, the way they're currently constituted. So are you now going to go and mess with the current roster? Maybe yeah, maybe not. Maybe you attach some draft picks. Is someone really good available right now that would really take your team and make them NBA Finals contenders? Or would that just be upsetting the balance of this incredible core that you've been building? It's a little bit more complicated than that. Orlando Magic decide if Wendell Carter Jr. is still part of core. Another point that I don't understand. Why would the Magic trade Wendell Carter? He's been a really productive player for them. He's on a fantastic contract, like $12 million a year. He's a 3-and-D player. He's tough. He provides timely baskets. It makes no sense to trade a player like that, especially when they're not going anywhere this year either way. They're building a unit of Wagner, Banchero, Carter, and what they really need is a point guard. I mean, Suggs is okay, but that's where they need the upgrade. Anthony Black just ain't going to cut it. Markelle Fultz, the ship has sailed on him. The truth is, had I realized how ridiculous this list from Bleacher Report was, I really wouldn't have started reading it at all. But we're near the bottom, so let's just finish this out. The 76ers, Bleacher Report says to be aggressive buyers while keeping cap space flexibility. Okay, a bunch of nonsense. Then for the Phoenix Suns, they say find best player available, create roster spot for buyout market. They could create a roster spot anytime they want, just chop off one of their players who are not really playing. Trailblazers, trade Malcolm Brogdon, stay patient with Jeremy Grant. just more complete nonsense. They have a team that's going absolutely nowhere. They have a bunch of players who could maybe be helpful elsewhere. Their team can get blown out by 70 points. They literally lost by 69 points to the Thunder in a game. So why would you be patient with Jeremy Grant? What is he going to offer you over the next 2-3 seasons while you have no meaningful players on your roster? Sacramento Kings look for upgrades while keeping Keegan Murray. Okay, more nonsense. San Antonio Spurs speed up the rebuild. Sure. Toronto Raptors explore Paskal Siakam trades. They already did that. The Utah Jazz keep Lauri Markkanen, explore trades for John Collins. Yeah, you just Bleacher Report just said keep your best player and trade your worst player. I know I'm exaggerating a little bit. John Collins isn't really that terrible, but yeah, you're saying keep your best player and trade a player who means nothing to you. Really, what kind of advice is that from Bleacher Report? And then the Washington Wizards field offers for Kyle Kuzma. Sure, field offers for anyone if you're Washington. What's the difference who you have on your team when you don't win any of your games? So really just a very confusing, bewildering list from Bleacher Report. I'm not sure if that is going to give us any more insight into what anyone should do at the trade deadline. But hopefully, at least from reading that list, you've learned your lesson not to waste your time with these lists. I certainly just learned that. And at least we went through the free agents. We know that after this season, the key free agents are Tyrese Maxey, Paskal Siakam, James Harden, Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Tobias Harris, Isaiah Hartenstein, Gordon Hayward, Tyus Jones, Kyle Anderson, Slow-Mo, Emmanuel Quickley, DeAnthony Melton, and whatever is left of Klay Thompson. We have a couple of NBA games coming up today on January 21st. We have the Nets currently playing the Clippers. Nets actually have a 14-point lead right now with 3 minutes left to go in the third. We'll see if the Nets can pull off the big upset on the hot Clippers. Nuggets are going to destroy the Wizards a little bit later today. The Heat are going to play the Magic with no way of knowing what's going to happen in a Heat Magic game. The Celtics are going to play the Rockets in Houston. Rockets have been playing well recently. So we'll see if they can take it to the Celtics. Celtics just lost a game to the Nuggets. So we'll see if the Celtics are going to lose back-to-back games. The Pacers are going to play the Suns. Pacers have been off track right now. Suns have been getting on track. We'll see if that continues. Pacers with a couple of losses in a row. Tyrese Halliburton was out for some of those. He was back for some of those. And the Suns completed a massive comeback against the Kings. The Suns won another game. And we'll have to see if the Suns can continue getting back on track and moving up in this playoff race now that they have their big three, Beal, Durant, and Booker, all back at the same time. And then we have the Lakers at home against the Trailblazers, absolutely desperate for a victory coming off of the defeat to the Brooklyn Nets last night. And that pretty much rounds it out. Again, you can email the show at nbavenue, that's NBAVENUE, at yahoo.com. So email us with your questions and your comments. Become part of the action. You can follow us on social, on Twitter at NBAVE, NBAV, and also on Facebook. Until next time, we're out.